All right. Are you ready to dive into some, well, kind of strange territory? We're doing a deep dive today on pickup artistry, like the whole playbook, you know. We're talking lines, we're talking strategies, all of it.
Should be a fascinating look at a certain approach to uh, social interaction. Not saying we endorse all of it, of course.
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely going full-on anthropologist here.
Yeah.
And you know what struck me going through this document? It's weirdly organized, like almost scientific about seduction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they break down tactics into all these categories: openers, humor, how to, like, build comfort even, sexualization. Pretty wild.
And some of the lines, whew, we've got the whole spectrum in here, laugh out loud, bad, and then some that actually make you think, huh, maybe.
No, for real. Okay, so just so everyone's on the same page, pickup artistry is this whole subculture built around, well, picking up women. And these strategies, these lines, that's their bread and butter. What's the deal with that?
Well, it all comes down to psychology, right? It's about understanding what drives attraction, how social dynamics work. They believe that with the right lines, the right behaviors, you can kind of trigger attraction, almost like clockwork.
A formula for flirting, you're saying?
In a way, yeah. Take humor, for example. It's a huge part of the pickup artist playbook. And it makes sense, a well-timed joke, it breaks the ice, maybe you create a little shared moment, shows you're confident.
Right, like that one, what is it? About a woman's smile being so bright, she must be a dentist. Could be smooth, could be super cringy, depends how you deliver it.
Exactly. And that's key here. It's all about context. The best pickup line in the world can fall flat if the timing's off, if you don't adapt to the person, the situation.
It's not just about memorizing then, it's like knowing how to work it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this other big thing in this document, the whole cocky and funny approach. They really lean into that. What's the psychology behind that one? Why is it so popular?
Well, it's about walking this fine line between confidence, which can be attractive, right?
Yeah.
And being arrogant, which not so much.
So how do you avoid being a total jerk?
Humor's the key. It softens the edges, makes you seem more approachable, even a little self-deprecating.
So it's like, I'm awesome, but I don't take myself too seriously, wink, wink, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Self-deprecating humor is huge. It disarms people because you're kind of owning your flaws up front.
Okay, there's this one bit, the outline. The worst boyfriend on the planet routine. The guy basically, like, roasts himself, all his flaws up front. I mean, how does that even work? It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, the idea is if you can laugh at yourself, you take the power away from those flaws, you know? Shows you're comfortable in your own skin, which can be attractive.
This is disarming.
Right, but it has to be genuine. If it feels forced, like you're trying too hard, it's going to backfire big time.
And this probably ties into their whole thing about sparking curiosity, keeping the woman guessing a little, right?
Absolutely, that's a big part of the playbook, yeah.
Hmm.
And there's solid psychology behind it. Curiosity creates anticipation, this desire to kind of fill in the gaps, you know?
It's like that opening line they suggest, what would you say to a girl you're curious about?
Mm-hmm.
Like reverse psychology or something.
Totally. You're making her do the work, piquing her interest, seeing if she'll bite. Clever, right?
Speaking of keeping someone hooked, they also talk about this push-pull dynamic. Attracting a woman, but then, like, throwing in a little uncertainty, keep her on her toes. Is that just playing games, or is there something to it?
Believe it or not, it's actually pretty primal, you know? Think about it. Even in nature, there's the thrill of the chase. A little distance, a little unpredictability. It can actually make you more attractive.
So you got to play it cool, but not too cool. Easy to mess that up, I imagine.
For sure. Too much push and you seem cold, too much pull and you seem desperate. It's about finding that balance.
Okay, this is interesting. They also talk about using social proof and pre-selection as tactics, basically implying that other women are already interested in you to make you seem more desirable.
Yeah, and again, there's some psychology behind it. Think about marketing, social media. We tend to want what we perceive as scarce, right? Pre-selection taps into that.
So even dropping hints about female friends, mentioning dates you've been on, that all plays into it.
Right, because it subconsciously says, hey, other women find me desirable. But again, it's got to be subtle. It can't feel like bragging.
Which makes me think of something else they emphasize. Calibration. What does that mean exactly?
Calibration is about being adaptable, like a social chameleon, you know? You're reading the other person's cues, adjusting your approach based on how they respond.
Because even the best line in the world could fall flat if it's not the right time.
Right. 100%. It's not about following a script. It's about being present, paying attention, adjusting on the fly. It's kind of like learning a new language, right? You can memorize every word in the dictionary, but if you don't know the grammar, if you can't put it all together, you're not going to be a very good conversationalist.
So it's less about the lines themselves and more about, like, developing your social intelligence, reading the room, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And that actually brings up another, a bigger question this whole thing makes me think about.
Okay, yeah. What's that?
Well, if these tactics like actually work, even subconsciously, what does that tell us about attraction itself?
Ooh, that's a good question. Like, is it really just about pushing the right buttons, mastering the right techniques, or is there something more to it, something you can't really put in a playbook? I mean, we all want those genuine connections, right? But if you're too focused on winning, does that actually get in the way?
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? Because this document almost makes it seem like, I don't know, dating is just a game, follow the rules and you win.
It does. And I don't know how I feel about that. On the one hand, yeah, there's definitely a performance element to dating, at least at first. You want to put your best foot forward, of course. But if you're always on, always performing, when do you actually let your guard down?
That's the million-dollar question because real connection, it does require vulnerability, letting someone see the real you, even the messy parts. And you can't fake that no matter how many lines you've memorized.
So how do you balance those two things then? The fact that, yeah, we respond to certain cues, but also you want that authenticity.
That's the challenge. And for me, it starts with self-awareness, understanding your own motivations, being honest about what you want, and realizing that connection, it has to go both ways.
That makes sense. Although this document is very focused on men attracting women, could anyone use these tactics, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And that's actually a really important point. You got to consider the power dynamics. It's one thing to use these techniques to boost your own confidence, maybe overcome shyness, but using them to manipulate or take advantage of someone, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's a fine line. What starts as harmless flirting could easily become something not so harmless, I guess.
Exactly. Again, it comes back to self-awareness, being respectful, remembering that every interaction, it's an opportunity to connect with another human being, not just like a target.
Well said. But even with the best intentions, sometimes things just don't click. And that's okay.
100%. Rejection is part of life, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise, even if it doesn't feel that way at the time.
So if we're not saying everyone should become a pickup artist, what's the takeaway here? What can we learn from this whole world, this approach to attraction, even if we don't use the tactics ourselves? That's the big question, isn't it? It's been fascinating going this deep on the psychology, but it's not like everyone needs to memorize a bunch of lines, right?
Right. If anything, I think this shows you how limiting, like a purely strategic approach to connection can be.
Yeah, totally. I mean, let's say a pickup artist, they do their thing, they spark that initial attraction.
Yeah.
What then? What happens next?
Exactly. Because the real good stuff, it comes after that. Those moments where you're just present, you're laughing together, being vulnerable, that's where the real connection happens.
That's not about tricks, is it? Building something real.
Nope. Shared values, being open with each other emotionally, that's the foundation. You can't fake that stuff.
And no pickup line in the world can replace that, right?
Exactly. Being genuine, letting someone see who you really are, flaws and all, that's the key.
Way scarier than memorizing a few lines, I'll tell you that.
You're telling me. But so much more rewarding in the end.
So maybe the real lesson from this whole pickup artist thing, it's not about the lines themselves, it's about what's underneath, right? Those deeper human needs.
Totally. Wanting to be seen, to connect with someone, those desires are universal, right? We all feel that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So as our listeners are navigating this crazy world of dating and relationships, what's the one thing you want them to keep in mind?
Be yourself. That's the most important thing. Be genuine, be kind, and remember, connecting with someone, it takes two, right? Be open, be vulnerable, be willing to, meet in the middle.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll let you continue your own deep dives into the mysteries of the human heart. Until next time, happy connecting.